In the great courts of England and France almost 500 years ago, the name of Spain was spoken with fear and envy. Spain had done the unthinkable. With just a few horses, some small cannon, and a dozen muskets, her soldiers had conquered a new world empire of 10 million people. The Aztecs had been slaughtered in the name of glory and profit. "We came here to serve God and the king," one of the conquistadors wrote, "and also to get rich." Inside the treasure house of the Aztec emperor, the Spaniards found gold and jewels beyond imagining.
The sight of all that wealth dumbfounded us. I felt certain that there could not be a store like it in the whole world.
Within a few decades, the riches of the New World helped make King Philip II of Spain the most powerful monarch in Europe. Spain's enemies, men like Sir Walter Raleigh, were mad with envy.
How many kingdoms he hath endangered. He beginneth again like a storm to threaten shipwreck to us all. It is his Indian gold that disturbeth all the nations of Europe.
England and France dream of their own empires of gold. The race for North America is on. It is an era of daring, of pathfinders and pirates. Those who dream of a fabled route to China and gamble on a bonanza of gold under the Arctic ice. The search for wealth will draw them ever deeper into the continent, exploring the great river that unlocks its secrets. A search that leads to new alliances with the Aboriginal people and deadly new conflicts. A search that will lay the foundations of the first great city on the continent and produce the forebears of a new people in the New World. For years, the stories have made the rounds in the taverns of England's seaports. Tales of lost cities in the New World stocked with silver and pearl and pieces of gold as big as a man's fist. There are other stories, too, of a mysterious passage through North America, a shortcut through the Arctic ice to the riches of the Orient. All that is needed is a sailor with the courage and skill to find it. Martin Frobisher has been dreaming of such a voyage for 15 years. Frobisher is a first-rate seaman with a shady past. He is, one compatriot said, a gentleman born, a mariner by profession, and a pirate by inclination. Frobisher has made a good living plundering Spanish and French ships along the coasts of Europe. Piracy had also earned him a jail term in the Tower of London. Now, finding the Northwest Passage will be his redemption.
I vow to make a sacrifice unto God of this life, rather than return home without the discovery of Cathay. It is still the only thing left undone, whereby a notable mind might be made famous and remarkable.
In the spring of 1576, Frobisher is chosen to lead a small band of men into unknown northern waters, searching for a passage to the Orient. The expedition makes its way through howling storms and treacherous fields of ice. Then finally reaches a wide, open waterway framed by headlands on both sides. As shipmate George Best records, Frobisher is completely fooled.
The land on his right, sailing westward, he judged to be the continent of Asia, and there to be divided from the firm of America, which lieth upon the left hand.
Frobisher is certain he has found the fabled Northwest Passage. He's also found something else.
Frobisher perceived a number of small things fleeting in the sea far off, which he perceived to be porpoises or seals or some kind of strange fish. But coming closer, he discovered them to be men in small boats made of leather.
They are Inuit, paddling their kayaks out to meet Frobisher's ship. Frobisher orders 5 crewmen to go ashore with the Inuit to find high ground and scout the territory. It is the last any Englishman ever sees of them. Frobisher searches the area, but they've vanished. Distraught and angry, he lures another Inuit man in his kayak to the side of his ship.
Knowing well how they greatly delighted in our toys, and especially the bells, he rang a pretty low bell, making wise that they would give him that same that would come and fetch it. He let the bell fall and caught the man fast, and plucked him with his main force, boat and all, into the bark, out of the sea.
Frobisher's Inuit captive is not only a hostage, but also a crucial piece of evidence, proof for his supporters back in England that he has actually seen the northern reaches of the New World. Before departing, almost as an afterthought, he orders his men to look around for other souvenirs of their Arctic voyage.
One brought a piece of a black stone, which by weight seemed to be some sort of metal mineral. This was a thing of no account in the judgment of the captain at the first sight, and yet, for novelty, it was kept, in respect of the place from whence it came.
But that little lump of stone will trigger one of the most spectacular treasure hunts in history. Frobisher arrives back in London in the fall of 1576 to a hero's welcome. His apparent discovery of a Northwest Passage is heralded as a breakthrough. As for that lump of stone he has brought home, 2 different assayers declare it worthless. but a third insists it contains something special.
It was brought to certain gold finders in London, who indeed found it to hold gold, and that very richly for the quantity. Whereupon preparations were made for a new voyage, and the captain more specially directed for the searching more of this gold ore than for the searching any further of the passage.
Queen Elizabeth orders Frobisher to go back as soon as possible and claim his discovery for England. She names it Meta Incognita, of limits unknown. The next spring, Frobisher returns to Baffin Island. His men erect a pillar of rocks, and he formally takes possession of the land. Nearby, they find an abandoned Inuit camp. Scattered on the snow are shreds of European clothing. Frobisher takes this as proof that the 5 men who disappeared the summer before have been murdered by the Inuit. When they come to the next encampment, a fierce battle erupts between the English sailors and the Inuit hunters. Frobisher calls the place Bloody Point. By the time Frobisher gets back to England this time, gold fever has taken hold. Many of the wealthiest families in England eagerly put up the money to finance a massive mining expedition. The Queen herself invests nearly £4,000 in the venture. In 1578, the largest Arctic expedition in history set sail. "15 ships with 400 men, including 150 Cornish miners. All that summer, Frobisher's men dig up the black rocks. George Best is sure the barren shores of Frobisher Strait contain infinite riches.
They found such plenty of black ore that if the goodness might answer the great plenty thereof, it might reasonably suffice all the gold gluttons of the world. There is no doubt this will make our country rich and happy. And of these prosperous beginnings will grow hereafter, I hope, most happy endings.
By summer's end, the miners have dug up 1,200 tons of ore, enough to stuff the holds of every ship in the fleet. But George Best's hope for happy endings is never realized. Once the cargo arrives back in England, the truth begins to emerge. For the next 5 years, the investors try in vain to extract anything of value from those tons of rock. It is all worthless. And in the end, they turn on Frobisher.
If any evil success should happen in the work of the ore, which God forbid, the same are to be laid on Captain Frobisher. He is so full of lying talk, as no man may credit anything that he doth speak.
Frobisher's boldness, his great skill in navigation, his coolness in the face of danger, all are forgotten. He is forced to take up his former occupation of piracy. As for the ore he has brought home from the New World, It is used as landfill to patch the roadways in the county of Kent. Equally frustrating, the body of water that Frobisher thought was the Northwest Passage turns out to be a dead end, a bay on the eastern shore of Baffin Island. The English will not find their El Dorado in the north. They will be forced to search for riches elsewhere in the New World. For more than a century, Newfoundland has been for England the most alluring prospect in the New World. Despite its inhospitable climate and unyielding soil, the island has one fabulous resource. The codfish is pure gold in European markets. And by 1610, a fleet of 200 English ships comes annually to the Grand Banks to fill their holds. But other countries also come to reap the riches of the sea: the French, the Spanish, and the Basques. It is only a matter of time before someone attempts a permanent settlement, and John Guy wants the English to be first.
Certain merchants of London and Bristol, having used the fishing trade of Newfoundland, and being confident that the same is habitable in winter, these merchants desire to have leave with a few men fitting for plantation. And if it so fall out that this plantation succeed, these places for fishing might forever become secure for our nation.
Fishermen of many countries have been building temporary camps on Newfoundland for decades. But every fall, when the fishing season is over, the camps are abandoned. The English reason that if someone can just survive the winter, that country can dominate the fishery. John Guy's 39 colonists are the first Englishmen to build a permanent settlement in the land that would become Canada. They seem to find the perfect spot, a place called Cooper's Cove in Conception Bay.
This harbor is preferred by me to begin our plantation. For the goodness of the harbor, the fish of the sea, the fowl of the air, and many other circumstances are most available to draw inhabitants to it. There wanteth nothing to make a flourishing country but cattle and the industry of men.
And work the colony does. Within a year, the face of Cooper's Cove is transformed. They raise half a dozen sturdy buildings, launch a small fleet of fishing boats, and establish a factory for salting and shipping the codfish. John Guy even sends out a search party, hoping to form a trade deal with the Beothuk Indians. For 30 days, the search party explores the bays and coves of the island. Finally, they spot a campfire at the end of Trinity Bay. Guy's men meet with the Beothuk, and that night they share food and drink together. They hope it might lead to a trading partnership. But in the morning, the Beothuk are gone. Guy's colony will never make contact with them again. By now, the colony faces more pressing problems. Pirates have begun to ply the waters around Newfoundland, and their attacks are wreaking havoc with the fishing fleets. John Guy's colony is forced to build and arm a barricade around the settlement. But nothing they build can protect them from the harsh reality of their third winter in Newfoundland. Colonist Henry Kraut sends the unhappy news back to England.
This winter hath been very hard, and there hath died above 70 of our goats, and many of our pigs, and all our cattle except one. And we had at one time more than half of our company very sick and lame.
Eight of the colonists do not survive that winter, and spring brings no reason for new hope. The crops are failing, and the early prospect of finding minerals has proven empty. Even the wealth of the fishery can't prevent the colony from losing money, and John Guy cannot convince his investors back in England to stay the course.
It is to be feared that it will never go well, so long as so ungrateful a person and so stony-hearted a penny-father is at the helm. They care not though it fall to the ground.
John Guy returns to England in disappointment in the summer of 1613. Without his leadership, the colony slowly dwindles and dies. Soon, English colonies will take root, but not here. South, along the eastern seaboard, in Virginia, Massachusetts, and New York. But in the northern half of the continent, the race to settle will be won by the French, first at Port Royal, and then far inland along the great river that unlocks the continent. If the commerce that shaped Canada's future began anywhere, it is here, at Tadoussac, on the St. Lawrence River. Ever since Cartier's time, French and Basque fishermen have been trading furs with the Montagnais Indians. At first, it is only a sideline. But by the early 17th century, the profits are turning out to be spectacular. The Canadian furs are thick and shiny, good enough to command the highest prices in Europe. One of the French adventurers at Tadoussac in the summer of 1608 is a former soldier turned explorer and mapmaker. His name is Samuel de Champlain. Champlain's backers order him to find a new location, away from the competition.
The country is fine and level, and the soil better than in any place I had seen, with extensive woods. Along the shores, one would think the trees had been planted as ornaments.
He comes up with a bold but simple plan. Go beyond Tadoussac into the little-known lands farther west, build a new trading post, and spend the winter there. When spring comes, the Indians of the interior will bring their furs to Champlain first. In July, he sets off along the river with 100 men and stops at a place he has seen once before.
I looked for a proper place for our settlement, but I could find nothing more suitable or better situated than the point of Quebec, so called by the natives, which was covered with nut trees. I at once employ a part of our workmen in cutting them down to make a site for our settlement.
Champlain's men quickly build a storehouse and 3 fortified buildings. But his competitors will not allow themselves to be bypassed so easily. There is a traitor in Champlain's little band, the locksmith Jean Duval. The Basques bribe Duval, order him to murder Champlain and hand over Quebec to them. At the last minute, Champlain discovers the plot. He has been a soldier and knows how to handle mutineers.
To serve as an example, Jean Duval was hanged and strangled, and his head put on the end of a pike and set up in the highest point of our fort.
As summer comes to an end, most of Champlain's men return to France. Only 27 remain with him to face the Canadian winter. It comes almost without warning, but Champlain has already spent 3 winters in Acadia and thinks he knows the worst.
The cold was more extreme than in France and lasted much longer. You don't know this country unless you spent winter there. There are 6 months of winter in this country.
Champlain is sure his men have everything they might need.
All those who were with me were well clad, slept in good beds, and were kept warm and well fed.
While Champlain works on his maps, his men wait and wait. Among them, a surgeon, Bonnerme, and a man named Lataille. The youngest is Etienne Brûlé, just 16. Champlain considers him a son and calls him my boy. As the weeks passed, they dream of the world they have left behind. In France that winter, the laws of fashion rule, and they decree that every gentleman must have a beaver hat. The finest hats cost 4 times what one of Champlain's men earns in a year. Philip Stubbs watches as the trend reaches England.
Every man does wear of these hats, for he is of no account or estimation among men if he have not a hat. As the fashions are rare and strange, so is the stuff from which their hats are made. The most curious are those made of a certain kind of fine hair. These they call beavers.
But the pursuit of fashion has its price. Europe's insatiable demand for beaver skins claims its first victims at Quebec. It's February 1609. The
scurvy began very late. The sickness attacks those who take great care of themselves as much as the most wretched. 18 were struck down with it, and of these, 10 died.
Bonnerme, the surgeon, is dying. Champlain himself is struck down. It appears that winter will achieve what the Basques have failed to do: destroy Champlain's outpost. Their suffering drags on for months.